Absolutely ideal. That's what I informed my son's wife Ashley after she declared that 25 of her relatives would be staying at my place during the holidays. I'm taking a vacation. You folks can handle the meal preparation and housework yourselves. I'm not your housekeeper. Her complexion turned ghostly white, as though she'd encountered something terrifying. However, what she was unaware of was that the actual shock had only just started. I go by Barbara. I'm 66 years old, and over the past half-decade, I've been treated as the help in my own residence. Everything began when my son Michael wed that individual. From day one, Ashley determined I was her personal assistant. Barbara, bring me a beverage. Barbara, tidy this area. Barbara, prepare meals for my visitors, and I, foolishly, always complied. I believed this was my method of maintaining family unity, yet I had hit my breaking point. That particular Tuesday in the holiday season, Ashley entered my kitchen as she typically did, without requesting permission, wearing that artificial grin I loathed. She had on an absurdly costly crimson outfit, certainly financed by my son's earnings. Her footwear tapped against my tiles like tiny hammers, striking my final bit of patience. Barbara, she stated, using that patronizing voice she kept just for me, I've got wonderful information. My whole family is visiting for the holidays here. There are just 25 individuals. Just 25 individuals. As though that were insignificant. As though I were some apparatus built for meal preparation and tidying up. I noticed the wickedness shining in her gaze while she proceeded with her grand scheme. She made herself comfortable in my kitchen seat, crossed her legs, and started listing them as though reciting a shopping inventory. I've already contacted my sister Emma, my cousin Sarah, my sister's husband David, my uncle Robert. All of them are attending. My young relatives will be present. My distant cousins, Emma's children. This will be an ideal holiday celebration. She paused theatrically, anticipating my usual alarmed response. Naturally, you'll manage all aspects, the meals, the tidying, waiting on everyone. Her statement struck me like blows. I recalled every instance I had cooked meals for her acquaintances while she received the praise. Every occasion I had tidied after her gatherings while she rested until midday. Every moment I had been rendered invisible in my own residence. We'll require at least 3 large birds, she went on, disregarding my quietness, plus that chocolate dessert you prepare as well. Additionally, you'll need to adorn the whole residence. I need it appearing flawless for the social media pictures. She anticipated my standard, certainly Ashley. However, this occasion was unique. This time something within me had broken permanently. I gazed straight into her eyes with a composure that shocked even myself. Ideal, I echoed, observing her smile start to waver. It shall be an ideal holiday for everyone since I won't be present. The quietness that came after was overwhelming. Ashley blinked repeatedly as though she hadn't understood properly. Her jaw dropped open, yet no sounds emerged. The tapping of her footwear ceased immediately. What are you saying? You won't be present. She eventually succeeded in speaking, her tone shaking somewhat. She straightened in the seat, her flawless stance starting to deteriorate. Precisely what you understood. I'm going away. Everyone can prepare meals, tidy, and wait on themselves. I'm not your staff member. I observed the pigment completely leave her complexion. Her fingers started trembling. The beverage container she held rattled against its plate. For the initial time in half a decade, Ashley was without words. However, Barbara, she stuttered. I've already informed everyone about coming. Everything's arranged. You're unable to do this. Certainly I'm able to. This is my residence. Those 4 statements landed like an explosion in the kitchen. Ashley's mouth fell open, her expression changing from disbelief to anger. She stood from the seat, her footwear tapping once more, though this time with urgency. This is absurd. Michael won't permit this. Michael may hold any view he wishes, yet the choice is final. For the initial occasion, I held the power. However, what she was unaware of, what none of them understood, was that my choice wasn't impulsive. I'd been organizing this for several months, and I possessed my motivations. Motivations that would shortly render them all speechless. Ashley's face transformed from disbelief to rage within moments. Her face reddened and her gaze constricted like a serpent preparing to attack. She moved closer to me, entering my personal area as she habitually did when attempting intimidation. You understand, Barbara? I've always recognized you were self-centered. However, this exceeds all limits. Her tone became poisonous, every statement oozing with disdain. My relatives are traveling from distant places, some internationally, and you'll destroy their holiday over a tantrum? A tantrum? Half a decade of abuse, degradation, and psychological torment, and she termed it a tantrum. I sensed anger building in my core, yet I stayed composed. I'd mastered emotional regulation following extensive periods as her target. That isn't my concern, I responded with a composure that disturbed her further. You ought to have asked me prior to inviting 25 individuals to my residence. Our residence, she yelled, completely losing control. Michael is your offspring. This residence will belong to us eventually. There it emerged, the reality that had always lingered unspoken but never voiced directly. Ashley didn't view me as kin. She viewed me as a short-term barrier before she acquired all I had constructed through years of effort and sacrifice. Fascinating viewpoint, I whispered, observing her eyes expand with alarm as she understood what she had disclosed. Extremely fascinating. At that instant, I detected keys at the entrance. Michael had returned from his job. Ashley rushed to him like a youngster reporting to their parent, her footwear rattling with urgent desperation. Michael, your mother has become irrational. She claims she won't assist with the holidays. She claims she's traveling and abandoning us with my whole family. I overheard their hushed discussions from the main room. Ashley talked rapidly, her voice dramatic and sharp. Michael whispered replies I couldn't distinguish. Following several minutes, their steps neared the kitchen. My son emerged at the entrance, his business attire disheveled from a workday, his expression exhausted yet irritated. Following him, Ashley stayed like a silhouette, her arms folded and a victorious look on her features. She obviously anticipated him to correct me. Mother. Michael started using that condescending voice he'd developed since marriage. Ashley informed me regarding your choice. Aren't you being somewhat theatrical? Theatrical? My own offspring was labeling me theatrical for declining to serve as his spouse's helper. I sensed something frigid and solid form in my abdomen. Something that had been developing for months ultimately solidified at that instant. No, Michael, I'm not being theatrical. I'm being explicit. However, Mother, it's the holidays. It's a period for relatives. Ashley has already extended invitations to all. We're unable to withdraw currently. I didn't suggest withdrawing. I stated I wouldn't be present. Ashley moved ahead, positioning herself between Michael and myself like a physical obstacle. Observe what I'm saying? She's turned entirely unreasonable. What will my relatives believe? What should I inform them? Inform them the reality, I responded serenely. That you presumed I'd be your staff member without asking me and that you were incorrect? Michael exhaled heavily, running his fingers through his hair as he typically did when annoyed. Mother, act sensibly. You realize Ashley is unable to prepare for 25 individuals alone, and what's the reason? I've prepared meals for her gatherings for years. It's her turn to gain experience. However, I'm employed, Ashley objected. I'm unable to request leave for cooking. My profession matters. Her profession. A limited schedule at a fashion store she'd likely obtained via Michael's contacts. Yet naturally, her profession held greater significance than my schedule, my vitality, my respect. Then employ a food service, I proposed with a pleasant grin. Numerous outstanding choices exist in town. Food services are extremely expensive, Michael shouted. Why waste thousands when you could? He halted suddenly, understanding his intended words. When I could perform it without charge, I completed for him. As usual, like the staff member you believe I am. The quietness extended among us like an expanding fissure. Ashley and Michael shared anxious looks. I could observe the mechanisms rotating in their minds, attempting to discover a method to control me into surrendering. Observe, Mother, Michael stated eventually, using a gentler voice. I understand you've been somewhat reactive recently. Perhaps you're experiencing some bodily changes. Bodily changes? Really? He was dismissing me as an irrational menopausal female. The anger I'd been holding started to simmer under the exterior, yet I succeeded in maintaining my tone consistent. Nothing bodily is occurring here, Michael. This concerns a single extremely obvious matter, consideration, and for half a decade, neither you nor your spouse has displayed any. That's untrue, Ashley objected. We've consistently been kind to you, your family. The family member who caters, tidies, and prepares while you both enjoy yourselves, the family member who's never asked but constantly anticipated to comply. Michael approached nearer, putting his hand on my arm as he previously did as a child when desiring something. However, he wasn't the caring boy I'd nurtured anymore. He was an adult who'd selected his spouse over his parent in all disputes for the previous half-decade. Okay, Mother, I comprehend you're disturbed, yet consider this. It's merely 7 days following the holidays. All returns to regular. Regular, they're regular, where I was unseen unless when they required me, where my emotions were irrelevant provided their existence was pleasant, where my residence had stopped being my refuge and had transformed into their individual inn. No, Michael. Nothing returns to regular since I'm departing in the morning. They both stop moving. Ashley was the initial to respond, her tone increasing by a level. In the morning? In the morning, I verified, appreciating the alarm that started to shine in their gazes. I've already arranged everything. What they were unaware of was that I genuinely had arranged everything, simply not in the manner they assumed. This is crazy, Ashley yelled, her gaze broad as she walked around my kitchen like a trapped creature. You're unable to depart in the morning. It's unthinkable. My relatives come in 3 days. Indeed, you ought to have considered that prior to assuming I'd be your staff member, I responded, keeping my calm voice while I peacefully cleaned my beverage container. Each action was deliberate to demonstrate that her theatrics didn't affect me. Michael simply remained there, moving anxiously between his feet, obviously divided between backing his dramatic spouse and attempting to negotiate with me. His gaze moved between us as though he were observing an intense sports match. Mother, if you would, he eventually whispered. At minimum, inform us your destination. When you'll return? I'm visiting my sister in Florida, I fabricated effortlessly, and I'll return following the New Year. The fabrication emerged so smoothly, it shocked even myself. However, it was required. They couldn't discover my actual intentions. Not at this point. Following the New Year, Ashley nearly gagged on her statements. However, what should we handle? I've already informed all to arrive. My Uncle Robert has already purchased his travel tickets from Florida. Emma postponed her arrangements. David requested leave from employment. Those are their issues, not mine. I observed urgency start to substitute the anger on Ashley's features. Her impeccably groomed fingers shook as she held the granite surface. Her joints turned pale from the force. Barbara, her tone abruptly shifted, turning sugary and controlling. You understand. I've consistently considered you as another parent. You're extremely significant to me, to our relationship. You're unable to simply leave us in this manner. There it emerged, the change in strategies from rage to psychological control. I'd witnessed this performance numerous occasions previously, yet it didn't affect me anymore. If you genuinely viewed me as a parent, you wouldn't handle me as a helper. However, I don't handle you as a helper. I simply believed you liked preparing for relatives. I believed you enjoyed staying productive. Productive. That term stabbed me like a blade. For half a decade, I trusted that staying productive was my method of maintaining harmony, of keeping a position in my offspring's existence. However, currently I comprehended that staying productive had merely transformed me into a ghost in my own residence. You realize, Ashley? You're correct. I enjoy staying productive. That's the reason I'll be productive for my own benefit for the initial occasion in years. Michael stepped in once more, his annoyance currently clear in all facial features. Mother, this is unjust. You understand we lack the funds to employ food service for 25 individuals. The payment for the new residence depleted our funds. A new residence. This was the initial I was learning about a new residence, my gaze constricted as I absorbed this detail. What time frame were they intending to relocate? And what was the reason they hadn't informed me? Which new residence? I inquired, my tone filled with a risky interest. Ashley and Michael shared a remorseful glance, the type of glance you exchange when you've accidentally disclosed something that was meant to remain hidden. Indeed, Michael started, staring at his footwear. We discovered an amazing location in the city center. 3 sleeping areas, water vista, exercise facility in the structure. Appears costly, I noted, maintaining my voice balanced, although my thoughts were spinning. Indeed, yes. However, it's valuable for the investment. And don't be concerned, we're not relocating distant. Just 30 minutes from this location. 30 minutes. Near enough to continue utilizing my residence as their individual eatery, yet distant enough to possess their solitude. How practical. And what's your payment plan? I inquired, although I previously had a hunch regarding the response. Ashley's expression abruptly illuminated as though she'd discovered the ideal answer to our entire issues. That's the reason it's extremely crucial that we host an ideal holiday. My Uncle Robert is quite charitable when he's satisfied, and my sister's husband David has relationships in property. If all proceeds smoothly, they might assist us with Michael's enterprise. There it emerged, the actual motive for the large holiday gathering. It wasn't regarding relatives or customs, it was regarding finances, regarding satisfying rich family members to obtain monetary benefits. And I was the foundation of their scheming plan. I understand, I whispered, allowing the quietness to linger while they both anticipated my reaction. Therefore, you require your holiday to be flawless to satisfy the wealthy relatives. Precisely, Ashley shouted, comforted that I ultimately comprehended the seriousness of the circumstances. I was aware you'd understand. You're extremely intelligent, Barbara. You consistently recognize the correct action. The correct action. For half a decade, the correct action had been to forfeit my ease, my schedule, my respect to simplify their existence. However, currently, I possessed an entirely altered viewpoint on what was correct. You're correct, Ashley. I understand precisely what the correct action is. That's the reason my choice remains. I'm departing in the morning. The optimism disappeared from their expressions like drained liquid. Ashley started to breathe quickly, approaching an anxiety episode. You're unable to do this. You're unable to destroy our prospects over a fit. It's not a fit. It's a carefully considered choice. However, what will my relatives believe when they come and there's nobody present to greet them? What will they believe when they observe there's no meal ready? They'll believe that their relative extended invitations without possessing the ability to accommodate, and they'll be accurate. Michael moved nearer, his urgency currently obvious. Mother, if you genuinely require a break, we can delay it. Following the new year, you may travel anywhere you desire. For whatever duration you wish, we'll finance your journey, the accommodations, all expenses. They'd finance my journey. With which funds? I questioned if they had recently stated the residence payment exhausted them without reserves. However, it was irrelevant. Their proposal was half a decade overdue. The proposal is appealing, Michael. However, my choice is final. This is psychological manipulation, Ashley exploded, her disguise of kindness ultimately dropping entirely. You're utilizing our circumstances to control us. Psychological manipulation. The statements lingered in the atmosphere like an unintentional admission. Since if I was participating in psychological manipulation by declining to be their unpaid staff member, what had they been conducting for half a decade? You understand what psychological manipulation is, Ashley? It's causing me to feel remorseful each instance I don't wish to prepare for your acquaintances. It's informing me that a proper mother-in-law consistently prioritizes the relatives when I decline to tidy following your gatherings. It's presuming my arrangements are irrelevant since I'm pensioned and possess nothing superior to perform. Each statement was a projectile that struck its target. I observed them both recoil marginally with every claim since they recognized it was accurate. Everything was accurate. That's not identical, Ashley stuttered. However, her tone had forfeited its entire strength. You're correct. It's not identical, since what you both have performed is significantly more severe. You have assumed my kindness for certain for years. The kitchen dropped into a strained quietness. I could perceive the wall timepiece marking time, the refrigerator's buzz, Ashley's labored respiration. However, what I could perceive most distinctly was the noise of my own nearing liberation. Since in the morning all would transform, and they possessed no concept exactly how significantly. That evening, while Ashley and Michael remained in the main room discussing in urgent murmurs, I secured myself in my chamber and retrieved my portable computer. It was the moment to initiate the following stage of my scheme. A scheme that had been developing for several months, starting from when I uncovered something that altered my complete view of my beloved daughter-in-law. 3 months prior, while stupidly organizing Michael's workspace, I had discovered a neglected document among his documents containing financial records, electronic messages, and official papers. Initially, I assumed they were business documents, however, something attracted my attention. Ashley's identity emerged repeatedly in exchanges I didn't comprehend. That evening, following their rest, I went back to the workspace and examined all meticulously. What I discovered froze me completely. Ashley had been using funds they didn't possess, significant amounts. Payment cards under Michael's identity that he was unaware of, individual borrowings utilizing the residence as security, and uncontrolled purchasing episodes at high-end retailers that totaled more than $50,000 in obligations. However, that wasn't everything. I additionally discovered electronic messages where Ashley conversed with her acquaintances regarding managing Michael to prevent him from finding her expenditures, methods to maintain his distraction while she continued purchasing, and most disturbing of all, a correspondence series where she schemed to persuade him to dispose of the residence to finance their prospects jointly. My residence. The residence I had inhabited for 3 decades. The residence I had financed through my labor, my reserves, my forfeits. Ashley desired Michael to dispose of it to settle her uncontrolled purchasing obligations. That evening, I couldn't rest. I remained conscious until sunrise, absorbing the deception, the scheming, the betrayal. However, alongside the destruction, something additional started to develop, a frigid, deliberate resolve to defend myself. The following day, I started my own quiet inquiry. I engaged a confidential investigator, a reserved gentleman my attorney had suggested previously. I requested him to monitor Ashley's entire monetary operations. What we uncovered was more severe than I had envisioned. Not merely was she an uncontrolled buyer, yet she had additionally been fabricating regarding her employment. Her significant profession at the fashion store was limited hours, and she was scarcely earning base pay. Yet she had been informing Michael she made triple that sum. From where did the additional funds for her individual costs originate? The hidden payment cards, naturally. And there existed additional information. Ashley had been informing her family members that we were significantly more affluent than we genuinely were. She had informed them that Michael possessed a successful enterprise, that I possessed a substantial wealth, that our residence was valued at double its genuine worth. All fabrications to preserve her appearance as a prosperous, successfully married female. Currently, as I gazed at my portable computer display in the silent obscurity of my chamber, I grinned for the initial occasion in several months. Since I had undertaken measures they couldn't even envision. Initially, I had transferred my entire reserves to a different account at an alternate financial institution, an account Michael was unaware of and would never access. Subsequently, I had met with my attorney regarding methods to safeguard the residence's ownership. It revealed there existed highly efficient legal methods to guarantee nobody could pressure me to dispose of it. However, my ultimate achievement had been to reach out to Ashley's relatives personally. Not everyone, merely the individuals who genuinely counted: her Uncle Robert, the prosperous entrepreneur from Florida, her sister's husband David, the property representative who was meant to assist them, and her sister Emma, who was employed in banking and possessed a perfect standing. I had transmitted them highly courteous electronic messages presenting myself as Ashley's worried mother-in-law. I informed them I was anxious regarding the young pair's fragile monetary circumstances and desired to request their guidance on assistance. Naturally, I had unintentionally included several of the most concerning financial records I had discovered. The replies were instantaneous. Robert was angry at being misled regarding Ashley's actual circumstances. David promptly withdrew any arrangements for monetary support. Emma was extremely furious. She warned to arrive individually to organize her younger siblings' affairs. However, the finest aspect was that not one of them had communicated anything to Ashley still. They were anticipating the holiday assembly to address her directly. An assembly that would currently be absent, the organizer they anticipated, the meals they were guaranteed, and the celebratory environment Ashley had depicted in her fabrications. My device buzzed with a message. It came from Robert, Mrs. Power All. Barbara, following examination of the papers you transmitted, my relatives and I have chosen to come a day sooner than arranged. We desired to converse with Ashley regarding several significant issues prior to the gathering. Would it be feasible for you to host us on the morning of the 23rd? The morning of the 23rd, precisely when I would be loading my luggage for my journey to Florida. What an ideal coincidence, I responded rapidly. Naturally, Robert, it shall be an honor to receive you. Nevertheless, I must notify you that I shall be departing for a journey that identical day. Therefore, Ashley and Michael shall be your entertainers. His reply arrived in moments. Ideal. That shall be precisely what we require. I shut the portable computer and reclined in bed, grinning in the darkness. For half a decade, I had been the quiet target, the compliant mother-in-law, the unpaid staff member. However, during that period, I had been watching, studying, comprehending how my daughter-in-law genuinely functioned. Ashley believed she was extremely intelligent, extremely controlling, extremely smart. However, she had severely misjudged the senior female who tidied her disasters. She had presumed my years and my obvious docility indicated I was powerless. In the morning, while she remained sleeping, I would be loading my luggage. Not for Florida, as I had informed them. My actual location was an upscale inn merely 60 minutes distant, where I had reserved a room with a water vista for the following 14 days. From that location, I would possess a premier position to the downfall of the small empire of fabrications Ashley had constructed. I would observe her relatives uncover her betrayals. I would observe Michael ultimately realize the truth about the female he had wed. I would observe her complete, flawlessly controlled existence crumble bit by bit. And greatest of all, I wouldn't need to move a muscle to cause it to occur. Ashley had excavated her own pit with years of fabrications and betrayal. I had merely removed the ladder from her grasp and revealed her relatives where to search. Outside, I could perceive that the dispute in the main room had ultimately concluded. Steps on the stairway, entrances shutting, the strained quietness of a residence filled with unsettled disputes. However, I rested soundly that evening. For the initial occasion in half a decade, I rested with the grin of someone who understands that fairness, even when it's delayed, consistently comes. At 6 a.m, my wake-up call rang like the song of liberation. I rose with a vitality I hadn't experienced in years. I bathed calmly and started to load my luggage. Each piece of clothing I packed was another stride toward my freedom. Each object I placed away was a quiet statement that I was no longer anyone's staff member. Ashley and Michael remained sleeping. I could perceive their heavy respiration from the corridor as I transported my baggage down the stairway. I had readied a message which I placed on the kitchen surface beside the extra residence keys. A short yet exact message: have chosen to depart sooner for my journey. The residence is under your control. Have a flawless holiday, Barbara. What the message didn't state was that I had completed several extra arrangements prior to departing, such as entirely clearing the storage area and the cooling unit. In the end, if they were planning to accommodate 25 individuals, they required a study to be accountable for purchasing provisions. I had additionally secured away my entire fine dinnerware, my sophisticated table coverings, and my holiday adornments in my chamber. If they desired to satisfy the wealthy relatives, they would need to obtain their own materials. However, my ultimate gesture had been to terminate the housekeeping assistance that arrived 2 times weekly, an assistance that I financed, yet for which Ashley consistently claimed the recognition for maintaining an immaculately maintained residence. Beginning immediately, she could learn what it genuinely signified to maintain a residence tidy independently. The vehicle came exactly at 7 in the morning. As the operator placed my luggage, I glanced once more at the residence where I had resided for 30 years. A residence that had been my refuge, then my jail, and currently would once more be my stronghold. Since although I was departing briefly, this remained my residence, and I possessed all plans of taking it back entirely. The inn where I registered was all I had imagined during my years of compelled household labor. A roomy apartment with a water vista, round-the-clock dining service, and primarily complete quietness. Nobody yelling for me from the kitchen, nobody anticipating me to emerge with new beverages. Nobody presuming my schedule possessed no worth. My device began sounding at 10:47 in the morning. Michael, naturally, "Mother, where have you gone?" "We discovered your message, yet why did you depart sooner?" His tone appeared puzzled, still drowsy. He had likely recently found the vacant storage area and the reality that nobody was present to prepare his Saturday morning meal. "Good day, Michael." I chose there was no reason in extending the unavoidable. "You both possess much to accomplish to get ready, and I am highly anticipating some relaxation. However, Mother, this is extremely abrupt." Ashley is, indeed, she's quite disturbed. Disturbed. What a polite method to state she was experiencing a complete anxiety episode at the understanding that she would genuinely need to manage her own existence. I'm certain she'll handle things excellently. In the end, she's an extremely skilled female. There existed an extended silence. I could perceive sounds in the rear. Ashley talking in a quick, dramatic voice. "Might you, at minimum, inform us your location in the event of a crisis?" "I am protected and in a pleasant location. That's everything you require to understand." "Mother, if you would, I understand you're upset, yet this is severe. Ashley's relatives come in 2 days, and we are unaware how." "Michael," I stopped him strongly. "You are 32 years of age. Ashley is 29. You are completely capable grown-ups. I am positive you can resolve your personal issues without depending on a 66-year-old female." Another silence, this one extended. "All right," he ultimately exhaled. "However, guarantee me you'll be fine." "And when are you returning?" "I'll return when I'm prepared." "Have your holiday." I disconnected prior to him being able to persist further. I instantly placed my device on quiet. I was aware the following several hours would be a perpetual assault of urgent calls and texts. However, I had anticipated half a decade for this instant of tranquility. I wasn't planning to allow them to destroy it. I requested lobster bisque from dining service, something I would never have prepared for myself, since it would have appeared excessively luxurious by the frugality standards Ashley had enforced in my personal residence. As I consumed gradually, enjoying each spoonful, my device flashed perpetually with muted alerts. The finest portion was still to arrive, since the following morning, precisely as I had planned, Ashley's relatives would start to come. They would not discover the ideal holiday she had guaranteed them. Rather, they would discover the unfiltered truth of who the female who had been existing on fabrications for years genuinely was. At 3 in the afternoon, I ultimately reviewed my texts. There existed 17 unanswered calls from Michael, 31 from Ashley, and a cascade of messages, progressing from puzzlement to begging to fury. However, the text I was genuinely curious about had come from Robert at midday. "Mrs. Barbara, my relatives and I shall come the following morning at 8 as decided. We anticipate encountering you individually and having that significant discussion with Ashley. Appreciation for your accommodation." Accommodation. If merely he understood that by 8 the following morning, the sole accommodation they would discover would be Ashley attempting to clarify why the residence was vacant, why there existed no meal, and why the kind mother-in-law she had praised so extensively had strangely vanished. I responded to Robert, "I apologize to notify you that I needed to advance my journey due to unanticipated family obligations. Ashley and Michael shall be pleased to accommodate you. I'm certain you shall have plenty to converse about." His reply was instant. "I comprehend entirely. Actually, this could be for the finest. Certain discussions are superior in confidence." Confidence. Precisely what they required, a confidential discussion between a female who had been fabricating for years and relatives who ultimately understood the reality regarding her monetary betrayals. That evening, as I had a treatment at the Inn Wellness Center, I permitted myself to envision the situation that would develop the following morning. Ashley and Michael, arising in alarm, making a final attempt, dashed to the market, urgently attempting to form the appearance of accommodation they had guaranteed. And subsequently at 8 precisely, the noise of the entrance chime declaring the coming of the relatives who had arrived to settle past due debts. I couldn't resist grinning as the treatment therapist addressed the tensions that had been in my back for half a decade. Tensions that were ultimately starting to relax individually, similar to Ashley's fabrications. The dawn of the 23rd arrived with a transparent atmosphere, and my device detonated with communications. I arose to the initial communication from Michael at 6:30 in the morning. I didn't respond. While I unhurriedly consumed eggs Florentine with salmon on my apartment's balcony, I chose to review the voice messages. The initial was from Michael. "Mother, if you would answer. Ashley is frantic. We are unaware what to prepare for morning meal for 25 individuals. The market doesn't begin until 8, and the relatives come at precisely that hour. We require assistance desperately. If you would contact us." The following was from Ashley, her tone entirely shattered. "Barbara, I understand you're upset with me, and I understand the reason. Yet if you would, don't cause me to appear terrible before my relatives." They journeyed from extremely distant. My Uncle Robert arrived from Florida. Emma withdrew significant arrangements. I am unaware how to prepare for this quantity of individuals. I am not even aware where to begin. I guarantee we'll discuss afterward and resolve all, yet currently, I urgently require your assistance. The third text was more improved. Ashley once more currently crying, "Barbara, I recently reviewed the storage area and the cooling unit. All is vacant. What is the reason there exists nothing? How am I meant to nourish my relatives? Where is the fine dinnerware? Where are the holiday coverings? If you would, at minimum, simply inform me where you placed all." Simply that, if you would. Oh, certainly. The emerging understanding that managing a home necessitates organization, work, and genuine funds. The delayed comprehension that meals don't mysteriously emerge in cooling units, that surfaces don't arrange independently, that adornments don't place themselves through enchantment. However, the text I was genuinely anticipating for came at 7:15 in the morning. It was from a tone I didn't identify, yet it communicated with power. "Mrs. Barbara, this is Robert, Ashley's uncle. We came at the terminal sooner and chose to arrive directly to your residence. We anticipate to be present in 15 minutes. I'm highly anticipating encountering you and having that discussion we've been organizing. Ideal." They would come at the height of Ashley and Michael's alarm. At 8:20, my device sounded. "This occasion," I responded. "Mother," Michael's tone was shaking, at the edge of a mental collapse. "Are you able to speak? Good day, Michael." "Naturally, I'm able to speak. How is your dawn proceeding?" "Mother, if you would, don't act this way. Ashley's relatives recently came and we possess nothing to provide them." "Absolutely nothing. Ashley is sobbing in the restroom, and I am unaware what to perform." "Have you clarified the circumstances to them?" "Which circumstances?" "How do I clarify that my parent chose to travel on holiday exactly when we required her greatest, when they required me greatest? Not when I required consideration or comprehension or a basic appreciation for half a decade of labor, merely when they required me. Inform them the reality, Michael, that for half a decade you assumed for certain that I would be your free household helper and that I ultimately chose I earned a break." There existed a silence. I could perceive sounds in the rear, a combination of alarm and puzzlement. An individual was talking harshly, likely Robert requesting a clarification. "At minimum, are you able to inform us where you consistently purchase the meals, what you utilize to prepare for unique events?" "Something to assist?" "Michael, I didn't consistently purchase something. I organized for multiple weeks ahead. I investigated formulas, created thorough inventories, evaluated costs, and committed whole days to cooking. It was an enchantment, It was labor. Significant labor. The quietness on the opposite side informed me he was ultimately starting to comprehend the extent of what he had dismissed for years. "Observe," he proceeded, his tone reduced. "I understand we've been thoughtless, yet currently I require useful answers. What do I perform with 25 famished individuals in my main room? Request delivery. Contact eateries. Visit the grocery store. Perform what all accountable grown-ups perform when they possess visitors. However, it's the festive season. All is shut or overwhelmed. The eateries possess no openings. Subsequently, perhaps, you ought to have considered that prior to you extended invitations to 25 individuals, without asking the individual you anticipated to perform the entire labor." I perceived a different sound in the rear, a grave voice. Robert was obviously requesting a clarification. "Mother, Ashley's uncle desires to converse with you. He states he requires to comprehend what's occurring. I would enjoy conversing with him, yet I'm on holiday. Inform him Ashley can clarify all excellently. In the end, she's the individual who arranged this assembly. If you would, Mother, simply 5 minutes." He's highly puzzled and somewhat disturbed. I believe he's able to assist us resolve this. Assist us once more. It was entirely about assisting them. It was never regarding what I required, what I earned, or how they had caused me to feel for years. Michael, pay attention to me extremely carefully. For half a decade, each instance you required something, I was present. Each instance Ashley desired to satisfy someone, I performed the labor. Each instance you had issues, I was the answer. Currently, for the initial occasion in 5 years, you need to resolve your personal issues. And that isn't my obligation. However, it's my relatives, he ultimately yelled, forfeiting his self-control. I perceived Robert's distinct tone in the rear. "Young gentleman, I require to comprehend what type of relatives assembly you arrange. Where is the female of the residence? Where is the elder who extended invitations?" Robert had obviously comprehended from his discussions with Ashley that I was the family leader who arranged these gatherings, the primary entertainer, the individual accountable for the relatives' accommodation, and currently there existed nobody. Simply 2 puzzled grown-ups ultimately confronting the results of their personal decisions. "Mother, if you would at minimum converse with him. Clarify that there's been a confusion. There exists no confusion, Michael. There exists a truth that you declined to observe for years, and that truth is that lacking shared consideration, there exists no working relatives." I disconnected. This occasion, I switched the device off entirely. It was the moment for the following stage. I descended to the inn's work facility. It was the moment to execute the most satisfying portion of my scheme. I seated at a terminal and accessed my electronic mail. I possessed multiple fresh texts from Ashley's relatives. The initial was from Emma, the monetarily accountable sibling. "Beloved Barbara, we've recently come to your residence and the circumstance is rather puzzling. Ashley informed us you departed for a crisis, yet we don't comprehend why the residence appears unoccupied. There exists no meal, no holiday arrangements, and honestly, Ashley's behavior is highly unusual. Might we communicate via phone?" The following text was from Robert, his voice significantly more grave. "Mrs. Barbara, I honor that you needed to journey for a crisis, yet I require to comprehend what is occurring in this residence. Ashley is unable to logically clarify why the meal she guaranteed is not present, why there exists no holiday adornments, or even why she was unaware you would be absent. This doesn't match whatsoever with the relative's image she depicted for us. If you would reach me desperately." Ideal. It was precisely the beginning I had been anticipating. I responded to both electronic mails with a meticulously built text. "Beloved Robert and Emma, I profoundly regret for the puzzlement. I was compelled to advance my journey due to situations I would prefer not to converse over electronic mail. Nevertheless, I think it is significant for you to comprehend Ashley and Michael's genuine circumstances prior to proceeding with any holiday arrangements. The papers I earlier transmitted you show merely portion of the monetary truth. If you genuinely desire to assist Ashley, I propose you have an extremely honest discussion with her regarding her expenditure patterns and her impractical anticipations concerning relatives' assistance. Genuinely, Barbara, I transmitted the text and paused. I didn't need to pause extended. 20 minutes afterward, my in-chamber device sounded. It was the reception. Lady, you possess a remote communication. A gentleman, Robert states, it's critical. Connect him, if you would. Robert's tone was strained, yet regulated. Mrs. Sprash. Barbara, appreciation for accepting my communication. I require to inquire some straightforward inquiries regarding my relative. Naturally, Robert, I'm entirely attentive. Initially, is it accurate that Ashley has been requesting you to prepare and tidy for her entire relatives' assemblies? That is accurate. For the previous half a decade, each instance you have come or she has had visitors, I have managed the entire arrangements. And when she informed us regarding the complex meals and ideal gatherings, was she arranging them, or were you? I organized all from the beginning. Ashley claimed the recognition. There existed an extended silence. I could perceive sounds in the rear. Obviously Robert discussing with an individual. Following inquiry, the monetary records you transmitted us, are they authentic? Entirely authentic. I acquired them straight from my offspring's individual documents. And Ashley is aware you found her obligations? No. Till currently she possessed no concept that I was aware regarding her hidden expenditure or her fabrications regarding her earnings. I observe. His tone had shifted to frozen. Single additional inquiry. Why did you choose to depart at this precise instant? Since I became exhausted of being handled as a household helper in my personal residence. Ashley presumed I would prepare for 25 individuals, lacking even requesting if I was obtainable or agreeable. The quietness that came after was extended and strained. Ultimately, Robert communicated, his tone flowing with dissatisfaction and held rage. Mrs. Barbara, my relatives are indebted to you a regret. Ashley has been fabricating to us for years. She depicted an image of you as a wealthy relatives, where she was the ideal arranger. She requested us for monetary assistance to grow Michael's enterprise, when seemingly the funds was to settle her uncontrolled purchasing obligations. I'm scared that's the case. And we, like idiots, were prepared to assist, since we thought she had demonstrated herself to be accountable and prosperous, when in truth you have been the individual maintaining all functioning while she claimed the recognition. Indeed, currently we understand. And allow me to inform you, my relatives do not accept this type of betrayal. Ashley is planning to have several highly grave clarifications to provide. Robert, if I might propose something, if you would, I believe it would be helpful for Ashley to confront the genuine results of her choices. She has existed in a sphere of advantage where others resolved her issues. Maybe it's the moment for her to study to be genuinely self-sufficient. I entirely concur. Actually, I possess several updates for her that is planning to alter her viewpoint significantly. The meant monetary assistance she was anticipating from the relatives for her spouse's enterprise, indeed, that was completely reliant on her showing monetary accountability and openness. Following observing these papers and the present circumstances, I can guarantee you there shall be no assistance. My grin expanded. I comprehend. However, there's additional. My sister's husband, David, who was planning to assist them with property relationships, is additionally highly disturbed. Seemingly, Ashley had requested him to assess several buildings for financing containing the residence where you reside. Were you aware of this? This was fresh. I hadn't understood Ashley had proceeded so distant as to request David to assess my residence for a disposal. No, I was not aware of that. Indeed, David is angry. He spent schedule and assets based on incorrect details. He senses entirely misled. Which leads me to my primary statement. My relatives have chosen that this ideal holiday is planning to transform into a relatives' mediation. Ashley shall need to clarify each fabrication, each betrayal, each control. A relatives' mediation. This was more improved than I had organized. Not merely would Ashley need to confront the practical catastrophe of her gathering, yet she would additionally need to be responsible for years of betrayal prior to her complete relatives. And what regarding the additional family members? They are entirely conscious of the circumstances currently. For meal this evening, the entire relative shall understand the reality regarding Ashley. And does she understand? Not still, yet she's going to. I could perceive sounds increasing in the rear. Matters were obviously intensifying at my residence. Mrs. Barbara, I need to proceed handle this circumstance, yet I desire you to understand that my relatives honor you immensely for tolerating this for such a duration and for possessing the respect to depart. Appreciation, Robert. That signifies significantly to me. Single additional matter. When you are prepared to come back, we wish to encounter you correctly. The actual Barbara, not the staff member Ashley claimed you were. It shall be an honor. I disconnected and reclined in my seat, experiencing a profound, heated fulfillment. At my residence, Ashley's universe of fabrications was falling apart section by section, precisely as I had organized. That night, I employed a confidential vehicle assistant to drive me for a journey through my area simply to watch from a protected space. The situation I discovered exceeded my most extreme anticipations. There existed multiple hired vehicles stationed carelessly, and several market packages were dispersed on the entrance deck, obviously left during emergency. It was similar to observing a drama series in actual time, merely 1,000 occasions more fulfilling. My device buzzed. It was a message from Emma. Mrs. Barbara, might you contact me? I require to inquire regarding extra papers. I contacted instantly. Mrs. Barbara, she stated, her tone strained. I'm examining my sibling's monetary circumstances, and it's more severe than we assumed. I recently found she has been utilizing Michael's identity and payment details to establish accounts he is unaware of. This might be viewed as personal deception. This was fresh details. Does Michael understand? We recently informed him 60 minutes prior. He's in disbelief. He maintains, stating it has to be a confusion. Emma, I need to inquire something sensitive. Were you aware Ashley informed our relatives that you were thinking of making her the recipient of your inheritance? The inquiry struck me like a bolt. What? Certainly. She informed us you were organizing to bequeath her the residence and a considerable portion of your reserves. She utilized that as security for several of the borrowings she obtained from relatives. The deception was more profound than I had envisioned. Emma, I can guarantee you that is entirely incorrect. My inheritance does not contain Ashley as a recipient of anything. I envisioned so, yet she utilized that tale to lend more than $20,000 from several of our relatives in America. $20,000 in obligation that I was meant to settle with my passing. It was extremely distorted, extremely wickedly planned. How is Ashley responding to everything? I inquired. There existed an extended silence. She's in total refusal. She maintains, claiming it's entirely a confusion, that you're being spiteful since you sensed excluded from the holiday arrangements. Naturally, still when faced with undeniable proof, Ashley was continuing to act the target. And the holiday gathering? Emma chuckled harshly. Which holiday? Ashley requested food delivery for 25 individuals since she was unaware how to prepare something different. We're consuming from disposable dishes since she's unable to locate the fine dinnerware. Rather than honoring, we're having the greatest powerful relatives confrontation of our existence. Food delivery for 25. The paradox was tasty. What do you intend to perform currently? I inquired. Several of us are departing in the morning. This isn't the relatives' meeting we anticipated, yet a handful of us are remaining to ensure she comprehends the results of her behaviors. Every relative's borrowing is being demanded instantly. The monetary assistance for Michael's enterprise is eliminated, and we shall be notifying additional relatives participants to defend them from upcoming controls. It was lyrical fairness. And Michael? That's the most unfortunate aspect. I believe he genuinely was unaware regarding her fabrications. He's shattered. My unfortunate offspring. Yet I additionally understood this was the sole method he would ultimately realize the truth. Emma, there's single additional matter you ought to understand. When I come back residence, and I shall come back shortly, I shall be creating several considerable alterations. Ashley shall no more possess unrestricted entry to my residence. There shall be fresh guidelines, fresh limits, and fresh results for lack of consideration. That appears ideal. It's the moment she studied to exist in the actual universe. I disconnected and requested the operator to drive me return to the inn. In the morning would be my victorious comeback. The dawn of December 24th arrived frigid yet clear. I loaded my luggage peacefully and got ready for the ultimate confrontation. Prior to departing the inn, I contacted my attorney, James. "Good day, Barbara. Are the entire papers we conversed regarding prepared?" "Excellently prepared, Barbara. The alterations to the inheritance are authenticated. The modification to the residence ownership is documented, and the fresh living contracts are prepared for your approval." "Ideal. I'll meet you in 60 minutes at my residence." "Are you certain you desire to perform this on the holiday morning?" "James, there exists no more ideal moment. It's the moment my relatives studied the genuine significance of appreciation. The vehicle left me at 10 in the morning. I unlocked the entrance with my access, and the residence dropped quiet. "Barbara," Michael's tone was unbelieving, nearly optimistic. "Certainly I've returned." He emerged initially with profound shadowy rings beneath his gaze. Following him arrived Ashley, a form I had not ever observed previously. No cosmetics, disheveled attire, gaze inflated from sobbing. Subsequently arrived the remainder of her relatives: Robert, harsh and commanding; Emma, carrying a document of papers; David and Jennifer, their expressions marked with dissatisfaction. "Mrs. Barbara," Robert stated, offering a palm courteously. "It is a privilege to ultimately encounter you. We are profoundly apologetic to have encountered in these situations." "The privilege is my own, Robert. And don't be concerned, occasionally the reality requires to emerge theatrically." Right then, the entrance chime sounded. It was James, my attorney. "James, appreciation for arriving. I think we're entirely prepared for the discussion we've been delaying for years." James came in, his appearance instantly contributing a judicial significance to the chamber. "Good day," he stated expertly. "I am James Thompson, Mrs. Barbara's lawyer. I comprehend there are several relatives and monetary issues that need explanation." Ashley became more white. "Why is there an attorney present?" "Since following half a decade of psychological mistreatment, monetary control, and a complete absence of consideration, I require judicial defense," I responded with frozen composure. "Judicial defense from what?" Michael inquired, truly puzzled. "From your spouse's efforts to utilize my upcoming passing as security for borrowings, from her schemes to persuade you to dispose of my residence to settle her uncontrolled purchasing obligations, from her illegal utilization of your payment details. Require I proceed." The quietness was complete. Ashley collapsed onto the couch, ultimately comprehending her universe of fabrications had entirely fallen. "James," I stated, "shall we continue?" "Extremely fine." Initially, the inheritance alterations. Mrs. Barbara has modified her inheritance to guarantee that the possession of this residence cannot ever be disposed of or borrowed against lacking her clear agreement, still following her passing. The residence shall be moved into a relatives fund that defends Michael's concerns, yet forbids any monetary exploitation. Ashley started to sob quietly. Michael appeared disturbed, yet additionally for the initial occasion, truly embarrassed. Following, James proceeded. The fresh conditions of living. Ashley no more possesses unlimited entry permissions to this building. Any appointment has to be arranged ahead and sanctioned by Mrs. Barbara. "What does that signify precisely?" Michael inquired, his tone shaking. "It signifies your spouse is unable to enter my residence any time she desires, provide commands regarding my meals and my schedule, or presume I shall be her household helper. Mother, I not ever understood that you not ever understood. In half a decade, you not ever observed that each instance you possessed visitors. I performed the entire labor while she claimed the recognition. You not ever questioned why your spouse not ever prepared or tidied, yet consistently discussed what an ideal entertainer she was." Michael lowered his skull, ultimately facing years of intentional ignorance. Robert neared Ashley, his tone filled with fatherly dissatisfaction. Ashley, our relatives provided you chances, confidence, and assistance founded on fabrications. You caused us unaware accomplices in your lack of consideration toward a female who earned our respect, not our disdain. Uncle, I not ever desired, you not ever desired what? To fabricate regarding your earnings. To engage in personal deception? To guarantee legacies that weren't yours to provide. To handle your mother-in-law as a helper? Robert had no response. There existed no response. There is single additional matter, I proceeded, gazing straight at Ashley. You shall repay each cent you lent utilizing fabrications regarding my meant legacy. You shall individually regret to each relative's participant you misled. And you shall study to exist inside your genuine resources, not in the dream you constructed at my cost. And if she doesn't? Emma inquired. Subsequently, she shall confront the suitable judicial results for personal deception and deceptive acquisition of payment, James completed, shutting his portfolio. I spoke to the complete relatives assembled in my main chamber. For half a decade, I forfeited my respect since I believed I was maintaining the relatives united. Yet I studied something significant. A relatives constructed on lack of consideration and control is not a relatives whatsoever. It is a harmful arrangement that damages all concerned. I gazed particularly at Michael. Offspring, I care for you, yet you need to choose what type of gentleman you desire to exist. Single who permits his spouse to mistreat his parent, or single who protects consideration and truthfulness in his relatives. Ultimately, I gazed at Ashley. And you need to choose if you desire to be an accountable grown-up who confronts the results of her behaviors, or persists to be a controlling youngster who anticipates others to resolve the issues she forms. The timepiece reached midday on the holiday morning. Currently, I stated with a grin I had been keeping for several months. Those who desire to remain for a holiday founded on truthfulness, consideration, and actual appreciation are invited. Those who favor to persist existing in dreams and controls might depart. For the initial occasion in half a decade, I was in complete authority of my residence, my existence, and my prospects. And I had not ever experienced a liberation so delightful.